for today. And we're going to be doing all of our questions in the Q&A box. We will save it for the end, but you will have the opportunity to unmute yourself and ask a question verbally if you would prefer that way. But Tina, you want to get us started here?
Sure thing. Thanks, Morgan. Yeah, so yeah, you can see if you can direct all of your questions to the question and answer section, that would be preferred. And we'll go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk about 4 simple changes for a healthy Florida lifestyle. And for those of you that have been joining us in other segments of this series, you've been able to learn various parts of agriculture and things like that. This is our final one in the series, so thanks for sticking with us. We do encourage you to fill out the survey every time that you take the class, so please feel free to take the survey. We will email it to you at the end of later today, and please do. Those help us to improve our programming. And then we'll also email you in 3 to 6 months to see if you've been able to implement any of the changes and see what you've learned. So to introduce our panelists today, we have Sharon Gam, who's a Seminole County government employee, worksite wellness and fitness coach. We have Katie McCormick, who's our residential horticulture agent and master gardener coordinator. Myself, I'm the Florida Friendly Landscaping agent at Extension. And also at Extension, we have Dr. Morgan Pinkerton, our Sustainable Ag and Food Systems agent. So if you're not familiar with Extension, we are a partnership between federal, state, and local government with roles of communicating science-based information to the local community and communicating the needs of the community back up to the scientists and researchers. And we do that through various programs. So most people are familiar with our ranching and agricultural extension programs, but we also have our master gardener and our horticulture programming. We have our 4-H, our youth curriculum and programs, and then we have family and consumer sciences programming as well that focuses on nutrition and finance. So today, with the first kind of simple switch that we're going to focus on is about composting and how you can grow your Florida lifestyle by integrating composting into your daily life. So for the goals of composting, some of us want to compost because we want to have a garden and we want to get that humus, that final rich soil from our essentially trash. And others might want to just say, hey, I want to divert some waste from the landfill, help the environment, and things like that. So you might fall into both of these goals, or you might gravitate towards one or the other. But composting can be great to integrate regardless of, the goal. But your goal will kind of frame how you're going to be composting. So if you want that garden compost, you want to commit to turning the compost, maybe cutting it into smaller pieces, be specific about what you're adding in there, and really have a proactive approach. Where if you're just simply deferring waste from the landfill and getting those environmental benefits, you might not turn it as often. You might not worry about the size of the things that you put in, cutting them into smaller pieces, and basically being a little bit more flexible and lackadaisical about it. So starting off, what is compost? Well, it's the dark, crumbly material that's created when microorganisms break down the organic matter. So that could be leaves and twigs and grass clippings from our yard waste, which is, Florida friendly principle, recycle yard waste. Or it can be your kitchen waste as well, and adding in that rich nitrogen from your kitchen waste. Eventually, it'll all break down, and what we get is called humus. It's the fully decomposed compost. So there are some things that cannot be composted, and so obviously here you could see, things that they're using these little noodles as a stir stick. Those obviously are biodegradable. They're made from wheat originally. Where over on the right, we have plastic. And so plastic obviously is not going to be, unless it's a compostable plastic, it's not going to be breaking down. But we do have lots of things at home that we can, in fact, compost. So, a lot of those kitchen scraps that we mentioned, so our flour, grains, if they spoil or you have little insect weevils come into there, banana skins, eggshells, oatmeal, any kind of that type of stuff from your kitchen. But then we also think about our bathrooms. We might be producing, some tissue or the inside of our toilet paper rolls. cleaning out your hairbrush, things like that. That's all compostable as well. Anything that's made from organic material will eventually break down. And then thinking out to our yard, so our yard waste, our crop waste, the parts of the food that we just simply don't eat in our garden, stems of our kales and things like that, those will all break down nicely. And if you keep animals, you can use that as well. So poultry, rabbits, birds, that's all fantastic. We just don't want to use carnivorous or cat and dog waste. So here's some things that we cannot compost. So meat or cheese, weed seeds or diseased plants. Typically our home compost is not going to be getting hot enough to really break down those, weed seeds and diseases that we might see circling around our neighborhood or our landscape. It's citrus skins. If you have a lot of citrus skins, you want to avoid it. If you just have a little wedge from your iced tea or something like that, throw it in, no problem. But if we're talking lots of citrus, like you're squeezing oranges on a daily basis or something like that, you want to maybe be careful with that because they are so big, they'll take a while to break down and they'll also make your pile more acidic. Glossy paper, so anything with a, more plasticky or waxy finish. You want to stick with, those paper towels, the inside of the paper rolls or tissues. Those type of things are going to break down nicely. Newspaper, of course, is good. Larger branches bigger than your thumb, those aren't really going to break down quickly. So you can put them in, but again, it's going to take longer. Again, our carnivore poo, we don't want to use cat or dog poo. Stick to your poultry, your ruminant animals, cows, horse, things like that. Fish, it depends. So fish emulsion can be a really good addition to your home landscape, but you want to be careful with it. So if you suffer with pests or raccoons or things that are really coming around your compost, maybe avoiding it, or if you do use it, sticking it really deep in the pile so they're not going to be able to smell it and attract. But again, lots of things that we can do. So watermelon rinds, all those parts of fruits and vegetables that we just really avoid or don't eat. Nutshells, dried up herbs, or if you clean out your spice cabinet, any of that manure from horse or farm animals, human hair or fur, things like that. Cooked or rice, any kind of stale breads. And then just to reiterate what we cannot compost. So those seed laden weeds. So if you're pulling weeds and they don't have any seeds on them, those could be a good candidate. But if they have those seeds on them, probably going to just proliferate in your yard. Anything that has disease, nematodes, things like that, your compost not going to be hot enough to destroy it. Plants treated with herbicide, fungicide, or pesticide. Again, if you're just putting stuff in because you want to defer waste to the landfill, this could be, something that you consider. But if you really want to be growing vegetables with that final product, you might want to, steer clear because we're not sure what the actual chemical is and how long it might take to break down. Meats, bones, foods, oils, fats, these types of things are going to be better in a Ziploc bag and put into the trash because they really do take a while to biodegrade and can kind of mess up your compost and really be harmful to those bacteria. And then carnivorous animal waste. So thinking about how we compost, we really want to separate things into browns and greens. So greens are going to be naturally rich in nitrogen, and they're going to be like if you left it in a jar for a day, they would get really kind of stinky. And browns tend to take longer to break down. They're going to be rich in carbon and they tend to stay pretty dry. So here's a quick list of just some common things that would be considered green. So our grass clippings, any yard waste, aquatic weeds, fruit and vegetable scraps from your garden, eggshells, plant trimmings, our manures. And then for browns, it's going to be more of our leaves, twigs, branches, wood chips, sawdust, tea bags, any of those type of newspapers, tissues, cardboard, that's all going to be brown. And what we want to do is we want to try to think, what is this product that I'm putting in? Is it considered a green or a brown? And how can I integrate it into my compost pile in balance? And so typically what we want to do is get a ratio that works well. And the general ratio is going to be 1 part greens to 2 part browns. So if you have a jar that you're saving some kitchen scraps in and you put that into your compost pile, you want to make sure that you use about 2 jars of those leaves to cover it up and kind of balance out that ratio. And so another example would be 1 large bag of grass clippings to 2 large bags of leaves. And this could make a really good nitrogen carbon ratio. Some people do get caught up in the details of the carbon and the nitrogen and that type of thing. Just generally ask yourself, would this product that I'm putting into the compost, if I left it for a day, say like a banana skin, is it going to get really like gross and moldy and stinky versus leaves or cardboard dry things? They can last several days where they really don't change state very much. And that can help you to reach that balance. You might say, well, my compost is just not composting. What's going on? Well, you might need to start breaking it up into smaller pieces, make the pile bigger. So that'd be like 3 feet or less, and then turn it more frequently. And again, these are people that are going to want that gardening compost, want that stuff that they're going to harvest, that humus for their veggies, for their landscape, for their garden at the end to speed up that process. Maybe it's stinky. This is a reservation. A lot of people don't want to get into composting because they're worried about the stench and their neighbors and things like that. A good compost pile should not smell. If you're getting that greens to brown ratio properly, then it shouldn't be really smelling at all. You should have just a really earthy smell towards the end of everything. But it could be that if you're having an odor, it's because you have excess nitrogen in your pile, excess moisture. So maybe it's getting a little too much rain or irrigation, or you're overwatering it. Just a general lack of oxygen. So maybe, turning it. We want to add in, if you're having add in that brown material. So those the leaves, cardboard, tissue paper, things like that. You want to add in the brown material. Open up the pile. So turn the pile and maybe use some sawdust, or, sawdust is like a really brown. That is like, it's very absorbent. It's very dry. So those type of things will really help to stabilize your pile if you have too much nitrogen and stench. So those are just some quick tips on integrating compost into your lifestyle. Just a quick tip as well is, if you want to save your kitchen scraps, a nice jar that is big enough to see, a glass jar, you can see inside of it. And then you'll be able to empty it, daily or every other day. You can see when it starts to get a little funky, you want to take it outside to your compost, or simply a bucket with a lid that is going to secure that odor. And you want to take that out every other day. Or I have a friend that also just has it in her freezer. She has a little Tupperware where she puts everything in there, puts it in the freezer, and then when she goes to take it outside, no problem, no smell, it's all frozen, and then it degrades right into the earth. So composting is a great way to integrate a healthy Florida lifestyle, and something surely to consider. If you have any questions about it, feel free to put them in the question and answer. And with that, I'll turn it over to Katie McCormick, who's going to tell us about healthy houseplants.
Okay, so you're composting outside, maybe you're growing some healthy plants in your landscape, but what about indoors? There are a lot of benefits to growing houseplants inside of your house. They can improve your indoor air quality. They found in studies over the last several years that they reduce air pollutants. They can increase the relative humidity of your home, which in Florida, maybe we're not so interested in the summertime. They can reduce the particulate matter in your house, so there's less dust floating around, and you get better acoustics. The sound doesn't echo as much inside of your home when you have plants in there. They also increase the feeling of well-being in people. So you have increased feelings of contentment, there's stress reduction, and usually increased productivity whenever you have plants in your living spaces. They also found that they improved health. When patients were in a hospital and given the choice of looking at plants outside or looking at a blank wall or a neutral looking wall, they found that having plants within line of sight helped to reduce pain in patients and reduce general discomfort. And oftentimes they were finding that these patients would recover a little bit quicker as well. So just some of the benefits of having houseplants in your house. Next. So how do you actually grow houseplants? You want to make sure before you pick a houseplant that you determine what kind of lighting you have in your home, how often you're willing to water this plant, the size of container that you can have, and the style that you want to have. the ornamental value of the plant itself, and if you're going to be growing it short-term versus long-term, which we'll be getting into all these a little bit further on the next slides. So next. For light needs, you want to consider the intensity of the light and how long it's going to be there. And if you're going to use artificial lighting, you want to consider the quality of the lighting that you're using. So intensity means how hot is it, how much light is coming in at that particular time of the day. And duration is how long is it coming in through. So when we're talking about intensity, if you have light coming through a curtain, it's going to be less intense than if you have light coming directly streaming through the window at the plant. Some plants are going to want a lot of direct sunlight. Some of them are going to want very diffused light to be happiest. So consider what kind of lighting you have coming through your window before you select for plants. Usually succulents are going to want more light, and non-succulents are going to want less. Here you can see a picture of too much versus too little light. So we've got a fig plant on the left side of the screen that got too much sunlight, and all that brown is not fungus or disease. That's actually just sunburn, like you would get sunburn if you went to the beach. And on the right side of the screen, we have some succulents that are exfoliating or stretching toward the light. And you can see while these guys would normally look like cute little rosettes if they were getting enough sunlight, instead they have these really long, kind of crazy looking stems. And that's because they're stretching really hard trying to get to the sunlight. So on the right, too little sunlight. On the left, too much sunlight. You want to make sure that you're picking a plant that can deal with the sun that you have in your space. Next. Also consider water needs, and it's really going to depend on the plant again. So succulents, maybe you're watering them once every 2 to 3 weeks. A cactus, you might be watering once every month or two. A lot of our more tropical foliage plants, though, are going to be wanting water once or twice a week at least. It's also going to depend on the size of your container. Smaller containers are going to hold less water and need water more frequently. Larger containers are going to hold more water and need water less frequently. When you're watering, also try to keep it off the leaves. Water dries a little bit slower indoors as opposed to outside. That water on the leaves can result in fungus problems down the road. Next. Too much versus too little water can look extremely similar as well. These are both peace lilies. On the left, we have too much water. You can see we've got wilting leaves that are turning a little yellow. On the left, we have too little. And again, we've got wilting leaves, although not so much with the yellowing. The reason that they look very similar is too much water rots out your root system and makes it harder for the plant to take up water. And so it starts wilting because it's not able to take out water with those rotted roots. And of course, too little water, there isn't water there for the roots to take up. And so it's wilting because there's no water for the plant to use. So you get similar symptoms. You'll probably know you have too much water if your soil is always wet, and you probably will know you have too little water if you never water your plant. Next. Next, you want to consider fertilizer. So you can use either water-soluble fertilizer or slow-release fertilizer. Water-soluble fertilizer is for people who like to feel like they are taking care of their plants constantly and babying them. So you would put a little bit of the water-soluble fertilizer into the water every time you water, and you're giving them those nutrients bit by bit over time. Slow release is what I use in my own garden, and it's what I use in my houseplants at home as well. With slow release fertilizer, you put some of those slow release pellets into the soil, and every time you water, it releases a little bit of the nutrients. And you only have to do that every 4 to 6 months at most. So it's a little bit easier. It just depends on how fussy you want to be with your houseplants. You can control the fertilizer release quicker or better with water soluble. You can be a little bit more negligent with slow release. Next. And then you want to consider container size and style. So first, ask yourself, do you like it? When it comes to containers, picking things that are similar in color instead of the rainbow that we have on the screen here can be a little bit more soothing looking. So picking all white pots or all green pots or all terracotta looks a little bit more like you did it on purpose as opposed to a bunch of different crazy things. In this picture, because all the pots look similar in style, they would still look pretty cohesive in your indoor landscape. And then you want to consider smaller pots are going to need more water. Larger pots are going to need less water. So how often do you want to be watering? Then consider form over function. So we don't want to focus too much on form over function outdoors, but indoors, this is inside your house. You want it to be decorative and pretty. So we want a pretty form. Does this whole pot have a hole in the bottom? If it doesn't, maybe you have a less decorative pot inside of it that you can take out if you accidentally overwater, so you can dump out excess water. It'll also keep water from getting onto your countertops. Do you need a saucer to help keep that water off of your countertops? And then also consider again, what kind of texture you like on your plant for terracotta versus glazed versus plastic versus glassed. Terracotta is going to dry out a little bit quicker. Plastic will hold water a little bit better. Glazed and glassed are both somewhere in between there. And then also consider when it comes to repotting, is it going to be easy to repot the plant that's in this pot? I know we get some of those pots that have that urn shape where you've got a shoulder to the pot, and it can be really hard to pull a plant out of that kind of a pot whenever you're ready to put it into something larger. So consider, is it going to be easy to repot? Will you need to repot? And are you going to want to have to deal with that whenever it finally comes up next? Also consider short-term versus long-term. So are you going to use this like a long-lived bouquet? Orchids can bloom for 4 or 5 months at a time. And if you just want it to bloom for 4 or 5 months and then you get rid of it and buy another orchid, you've still enjoyed that flower and the benefits it provides indoors. Or is this going to be something that you want to keep as kind of a family heirloom? Or is it a family heirloom? I have some plants from my grandma where she was growing Christmas cactus, and now I have her Christmas cactus at my house. So are you going to be taking a lot of care of this plant and really caring for it? Or are you just going to grow it until it's done putting on its show and then get rid of it? Both of those are fine methods to use with houseplants. Next. So next, further troubleshooting, we're going to talk a little bit about insects and disease. Next. So with insects, you want to inspect these plants before you buy them. Isolate new plants from your existing houseplant collection, just in case they do have some kind of insects. Remove infested plants. If you get a plant that's covered in bugs, take it out of the area and put it out onto your porch or lanai for a while until you can get that cleaned off. You can spray them with water. Leaves can be sprayed with water and usually get rid of a lot of small insect pests quickly, or you can treat with insecticidal soap. Next. So these are just some of our common houseplant pests. Aphids can be found indoors and they'll create a distortion to the leaves. Mealybugs also distort leaves and will look kind of like a white fungus. Mites, particularly spider mites, can create a webbing on the plant, and they're pretty hard to spot, but the webbing isn't. Thrips are really common on ficus plants and will create this kind of browning distortion to the leaves. And then sometimes in your soil, if you water too often and the soil stays too wet, you can get gnats or springtails, which are breaking down that soil and eating fungus that's growing on it. So if you slow down your watering, they should go away. Next. Diseases, this should look pretty similar to our pests. So inspect before buying, isolate new plants from your old plants, remove infected plants or infected leaves, avoid water on the leaves. Water on the leaves can support fungal growth. And if you're having fungus problems a lot, increase the air circulation in the area. Next. Most of our leaf spot diseases can be treated just by removing the leaf that the leaf spot is on. Powdery mildew can be treated by reducing the amount of water that's getting on those leaves and again, removing infected leaves. If you're getting crown rots and root rots, unfortunately, that's usually the end of the road for your plant. So once your root system starts rotting out, it can be really hard for your plant to recover. And just making sure you don't overwater can keep you from getting those root and crown rots. And finally, sooty mold actually grows on insect poop. So if you have insects on your plants, you'll get this black sooty growth on the plants, and it's actually growing on the excretions from those insects. So if you get rid of the insects, you can wash that sooty mold off and it won't come back again. Next. Next, you want to consider right plant, right place, and make sure that you're protecting our natural lands. Inside, a lot of our houseplants grow really well because they are low water requirement. They can grow in a variety of different situations, and they are really good at propagating themselves. Outside, all of those qualities can make them really good at being invasive species, like the oyster plant I have on the screen here, which is considered one of our invasive species here in Florida, but is a really beautiful houseplant if you're growing it inside where it can't escape into the landscape. Next. So some of our invasive offenders outdoors that you'll find for sale at the nursery as a houseplant are arrowhead vine, pothos, laurel fig, and oyster plant. All of these guys make wonderful houseplants, partially because they are super tough and it's very difficult to kill them. But the same goes for outside. They make really great invasive species outdoors because they're really tough and it's really hard to kill them. So keep your houseplants inside. If you get tired of them, make sure they are completely dead before you try composting them, particularly if they are one of these invasive offenders. Next. So let's talk about some easy houseplants that should stay inside, but make really good houseplants indoors. Next. Cast iron plant is an awesome houseplant for indoors or in a shady area on your patio or lanai. It gets 1 to 2 feet tall, spreads 1 to 2 feet wide. It has a really upright growth habit, slow grower too, so you don't have to repot it very often. It grows in shade to really deep shade. It doesn't really like sun at all. It'll grow in a lot of different soil types. It is moderately to highly drought tolerant. And there really aren't any pests that eat this guy. There are also a lot of variegated varieties, so you can get leaves that are spotted or striped and really attractive. Next. Next, we've got pothos. This one is something that has been grown by everybody probably for decades. The height really depends on supporting structure, as does the spread. It grows prostrate and spreading. It's a vining type plant, and it's a very fast grower. Prefers to grow in shade. It has extremely high drought tolerance. I forgot to water my pothos for 2 months and it's still alive, though not looking at super happy right now. And again, no serious pests. This one can be extremely hard to get rid of if it escapes into your landscape, so make sure you're keeping your pothos inside. Next. Chinese evergreen is another really beautiful, easy to grow houseplant that you can find at most nurseries. It's 1 to 3 feet tall, depending on the variety, and 2 to 4 feet wide. So this can be quite a large houseplant. Has an upright growth habit. It is an extremely slow grower. And again, it prefers to be grown in a mostly shady situation. There aren't a lot of pests that affect this plant, and it has moderate drought tolerance. This is another one where if you forget to water it, it will complain for a long time before dying. Next. Spider plant is another one that can be a little bit invasive outside. This guy can get up to 1 feet tall, and with those pups, they can spread out to 2 to 4 feet. You can see how those little pieces of the plant actually can be rooted and turned into more plants. Has a moderate growth rate. Again, prefers to be grown in shade. Will take a little bit of a sunnier window though. Has extremely high drought tolerance. This is another one that you can forget to water and it will complain for a long time before it dies. And again, no serious pests on him. This also is a really great plant to take a cutting off of and give to a friend, because you can take those little spider plant babies, clip them, put them in some soil, and they'll root within a week or two and be a new plant. Next. Next, we've got aloe. Again, this one's 1 to 2 feet tall, 2 to 3 feet wide, has a pretty vase shape to it. It really prefers to be in a window that has a high intensity of light. If you're growing it indoors, it's extremely drought tolerant. This is a succulent. And again, no serious pests are normally seen on this plant. It also can be used to treat for sunburns. It can soothe sunburns if you get burnt. Next. Finally, we've got ponytail palm. So this guy can get really, really big, but he's an extremely slow grower. So indoors, it's going to be decades before he outgrows his pot. It is a palm-like plant with an upright or erect growth habit. It prefers to be in a pretty sunny window if you're growing it indoors. It'll grow in a wide variety of different soil types. It is extremely drought tolerant and doesn't really have any pests or diseases. The base of your ponytail palm will expand over time and can kind of force out the sides of the pot. So keep that in mind. Depending on the size of your pot, you may need to repot him frequently. And can those orchids be composted? Yeah, you could probably compost your orchids. They'd be considered a green. They might also grow in your compost bin though.
We also had a couple questions about insecticidal soap that I wanted to bring up too. Insecticidal soaps are a type of chemical control for our plant pests. They're generally considered to be a little bit easier to use, especially in indoor settings, because they work by basically suffocating the insect. So it kind of smothers them, they can't breathe, and that's how it kills off the insect pests on your plants.
All right, and I'll answer more questions in the chat box while we pass it over to Sharon.
Okay, hi, thank you. So I want to switch gears just a little bit here and talk about how to sneak some more movement into your day to protect your health. This is really important because our bodies are meant to move, and they're meant to move frequently. And when we don't move enough across the course of our day, which unfortunately most of us don't these days, we start to feel some negative health effects. And that ranges from stiff or sore muscles, lack of energy, weight gain, and even an increased risk of chronic disease. So you may have heard that sitting is the new smoking. Well, that's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but there is a lot of research to show that people who sit for long periods of time across each day are at an increased risk of things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancers, and other really serious health conditions. And unfortunately, this is the case even for people who do enough structured exercise. So even if you're getting 30 or even 60 minutes of a structured workout each day, if you're then also sitting for most of the rest of that day, you're still at an increased risk of some health problems. So what I want to do is just give you a couple of easy little tips and suggestions and mindset shifts that can help you to move a little bit more across your day. So I want to talk about what you can do at home and then at work. So at home, I like to think about this as building kind of inefficiencies into your daily routine. So we rely a lot on time-saving and effort-saving tools and devices to help us do our daily routines these days. And for the most part, that's good. Those things make our lives easier, but sometimes they can discourage us from moving, and so they can have a negative impact on our health. So what I want you to do is think about, at least sometimes, and I'm not saying all the time, but at least sometimes do things in a way that's maybe a little bit less convenient, but that prompts you to move more. And these are mostly the simple things that you've probably heard before, taking the stairs, parking a little bit farther away, and walking the rest of the way. You could make more trips when you're putting away laundry or bringing in groceries, or you could use mechanical tools or hand tools when you're cooking or cleaning or doing your gardening or your outdoor yard work. And of course, these things will take a little bit more time to do this way, but I think that your health and your well-being are well worth a couple of extra minutes of time and effort. And all of these little bits of movement will add up. You can also think about this as kind of sneaking in some exercise while you're doing your usual habits. So we spend a lot of time across our day either waiting or doing things that don't really require our full attention or that we could use to kind of multitask. So they're all great opportunities for sneaking in a little bit of exercise. You could do a couple of repetitions of a body weight exercise like a squat or a lunge or a counter push-up while you're, let's say, waiting for your dinner to heat up in the microwave. And you might think, again, that these little bits of movement, a couple of squats here and there is probably not going to make much of a difference, but you'd be surprised. Again, these things add up across the course of a day, and there's actually a legitimate method of strength training. It has a weird name. It's called the greasing the groove method that uses this idea. So you would do 1 to 3 repetitions of a body weight exercise, but you practice it really frequently across the day. So you could accumulate 30, 40, 50 push-ups across a whole day, but you only do them in really short bursts. So it's really easy, it doesn't take up too much time. And it's a really efficient way of improving strength, of getting better at that particular exercise. And that will translate to better results from your more structured strength workouts. And it also gives you the opportunity to move regularly throughout the day, so it'll protect your health. Now at work, obviously we don't really want to be doing things less efficiently at work or doing things in ways that take up more time. So this is all about thinking of ways that you can move a little bit more where it's not disruptive to your usual workflow. So something I want to mention that's really popular these days are standing desks. So these are devices, they're either you can get them as a full desk or a standing desk converter like you can see here, and it allows you to move your keyboard and your monitors up and down. So you could spend, let's say, 30 minutes sitting and working, spend 30 minutes standing and working, back to sitting, and alternate back and forth throughout the day. And you can purchase these things, but you can also kind of just make them yourself. They don't have to be this fancy. So something as simple as if you have a laptop, just putting it on top of a cardboard box or putting it up on a bookshelf or something. and then standing and working that way, and then moving it back to your desk and sitting and working. Now, if this is not really practical for you for whatever reason, and I know it's not for many people, at least try to think about changing your seating position. So what we want to avoid is getting into that kind of like technology posture, you know, where your arms are forward and your back is kind of rounded and your neck is down. That can cause some problems, especially tightness in your back and neck. So you want to at least be thinking about moving around, changing your posture in your chair, even if you're not able to stand. And we do recommend that you try to change positions about every 30 minutes. So ideally from sitting to standing, but again, if you can't do that, at least trying to change your seating position every 30 minutes. And I know 30 minutes sounds like a lot. And I spoke in my presentation a few weeks ago about the importance of starting really small and easy and working your way up. So if this feels like too much for you right now, just try to do whatever is practical and reasonable for you, and then kind of build on it as you go. And you can also think about taking some really quick movement breaks. So I like to call these micro stretches or micro workouts. So I've got on the slide here a couple of examples. I made a couple of documents. There's a 1-minute micro stretch sequence that you can do in your chair, a 1-minute desk exercise sequence that you can do right in your workspace. And I have these as PDFs, so I will get these sent out to everybody afterwards. You can have copies of these. And these really only take, again, about a minute, maybe 2 minutes total, which is not enough to really disrupt your workflow. But what it does do is it increases blood flow. So every time that you are moving, you're encouraging blood to flow effectively around your body. And research has shown that it only takes about 1 to 2 minutes of movement to decrease the negative health effects of sitting for long periods of time, as long as you do it frequently and consistently across the day. So again, all these things add up, all these little bits of movement. So I want to show you an example. Yeah, if you could play this for me, Tina. I don't know if this is going to work or not. So this is a time lapse of me working in my office last week. So SGTV came in, they put a little GoPro camera in the corner of my office, and it took little pictures every so often. It doesn't really show exactly as much movement as I was doing, but as you can see, I was working for about an hour here, and I was moving the whole time. So I was sitting, I was standing, I was stretching, I was fidgeting. I went out and took a little walk down the hallway at one point. And none of this was disruptive to my work at all. I actually got a lot of work done during this hour. And when I'm able to move this much throughout the day, I notice a really big difference. So I feel better, my energy levels are better, my mood is better, I don't get tightness or stiffness in my shoulders and my neck. And importantly, my work is better. I'm able to focus better, I'm more productive. And again, I know that this much movement is maybe not practical for everybody. Depending on your work role or your office setup, you might not be able to or want to be moving around this much, but just try to think of some ways that you can incorporate some movement. Again, even if it's just stretching in your chair or just getting up and going for a walk down the hallway just for a minute or two. It all adds up, it's all really important. And when I talk to people about this sort of thing, I get a lot of people who really do want to be more active. They understand the benefits, they know that they're sitting for too long and they shouldn't be, but they find it hard to follow through. And a lot of it is really about just kind of remembering to do it. And I totally understand that. This happens to me sometimes. I'll be working and I'll kind of get engrossed in whatever I'm doing, and suddenly I'll look down and I'll realize, it's been 3 hours and I've barely gotten out of my chair. So reminders are really key here. Something really simple: set an alarm on your phone, set a calendar reminder, put a Post-it note up. I have one on my monitor that just says get up and move. That'll kind of jog your memory so you remember to get moving a little bit. Getting others involved is always a really good way to remind yourself and to be accountable and motivated to do this. So talk to your coworkers, talk to your family members, and see if you can get them involved. But then there are also ways that you can sort of set up your environment that almost force you to move more without you really having to remember. So think about the items or the things that you use the most throughout each day. So let's say at home, maybe you've got your everyday set of dishware or glasses that you use all the time, or your TV remote or your phone charger, or at work, maybe you have a certain file or folder that you use all the time, or even your garbage can. And try to move those to places that are a little bit less convenient to get to. So at home, let's say if you moved that set of everyday dishes to a low cabinet, every time you go to get a plate, that'll be an opportunity for you to kind of squat down or lunge down to get it. You won't have to remember, you'll kind of have to do it because that's where the plates are. Or if you move your garbage can to the other side of your office, every time you go to throw something out, you kind of have to get up out of your chair, walk across the room. And so it'll kind of break up and force you to move a little bit more without you really needing to remember it. Or you can think about getting some really small, inexpensive pieces of exercise equipment and put them around your home or your workspace in places that you'll see them often and where it's convenient for you to use them. So all you really need is, let's say, a set of resistance bands that you can keep on the table next to your couch. And every time you sit down to watch TV, you'll see them there and you'll remember, oh yeah, I can do a couple of really quick little resistance band exercises right now. Yep. So what I want to leave you with is just a little bit of a mindset shift here. So I want you to think about exercise as movement, and remember that all movement counts. No matter how small it is, it all adds up and it's all really important for your health. So every opportunity that you have to move, that's a chance for you to feel better, to function better. And so I really want to encourage you to take as many of those opportunities as you possibly can. All right, I'll turn it over to Morgan unless there are any questions. Nope.
Well, I'll kind of bring together a lot of what we've been talking about to circle back to our conversation from our second class about local agriculture. So with that, move on to the next slide. So really what we're thinking about with local agriculture is making it more sustainable. So we have an increasing population, we have a lot of problems with our natural resources, and agriculture is something that is critical, it's important, we have to eat, and we have to make sure that agriculture is doing what it can to protect the sustainability of our environment. But one thing that I do want to mention here is it has to be economically sustainable as well. If there is no profit in farming, a farmer will not continue to farm. So it's really important that we understand that there is an economic trade-off, and that may mean we have to pay a little bit more for our produce to know that it was grown in a sustainable way. And so that's just something to think about in terms of how we're supporting our local agriculture. And when we think about environmental sustainability, supporting local does do a lot in itself because it's keeping money in our own economy. It's also forming that community. So getting involved with the community, involved with your farmers, your local farmers, can really increase kind of your connection with the land that's around you as well as the people. So move on from this slide. Just to revisit this real quick, the food system is very, very complex. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in the process of getting that food grown and then to your plate. So it's not as simple as just planting it and letting it go. There is a lot of steps along the way that the farmers have to navigate. And then it kind of sometimes transitions a lot of hands along the way too, whether it's through distribution, transport, markets, sales, and then eventually it gets to you. So just keeping that in mind there when we talk about why we are talking about local and why buying local. So moving on to the next slide here. I do want to mention when I say the word local, it is a relative term. So there's no official definition for what local means when it refers to agricultural products. Does it mean that it's grown 20 miles from your house, or does it mean that it's about 4 hours down I-4? It is really a relative term, and sometimes you'll go to these markets and they'll advertise products as local, and you should really ask questions. What do they mean by local? I've seen it in the grocery stores where you can pick up local honey, and while that might be local to some area, it's being sold very far from where it was originally produced. So this was just an interesting example that you go to the store, you pick up what is labeled as local honey, and it was actually grown in another state. So it's really understanding your own definition of local. and then asking questions to see really where was the food produced. And one more comment on the term local, it does not mean organic, it does not mean it's non-GMO or any of the other labels that are put on foods like we talked about. It really refers to where it was grown, and sometimes we see that those local foods end up getting processed elsewhere too. So they might be grown in our area, but they're sent somewhere else for processing. But that's all part of our really complex food system that we talked about already. So why buy local produce? Why are we harping on this so much? Well, there's a lot of different benefits, and it's not just a benefit to you as the consumer, but there are also benefits to the community and the farmers. So buying local really, number one, maximizes freshness. So if you're buying close to home, that means that product didn't have to travel as far to get to you. And the moment something is harvested and taken from the ground, it starts to break down, and so does that nutritional value of that product too. It also brings in variety. Locally, we might have things different that aren't grown in other parts of Florida, for example, or other parts of the world. And one good example that we have is Florida citrus. A lot of people will come visit Florida and they're really interested in buying local to try our citrus here. And you can get to know your grower and their practices, as well as I already talked about, help those local farmers. So those local farmers, they are supplying jobs to the area. And when you buy their products, that's in turn going back to support the people who are taking those jobs. And it's kind of a cycle of keeping that money in your local community. And then it also keeps our local land in farming. So we've, especially here in Central Florida, seen a lot of land being converted to housing in urban areas. So what was once pretty wide open, planted, there were farms and natural areas, is being converted to different things. So keeping local land and farming, farms do offer their own ecosystem services. So there's pollination services and a lot of other good things that go on farmlands. And so we don't want to get rid of them and push them out of our area. And then other reasons to buy local, you can protect the environment by reducing packaging as well as reducing that transport. It's not traveling as far, so it doesn't have to get on a truck, use a lot of greenhouse gases as it moves across the country, or get on a boat, releasing greenhouse gases in the process for burning fuels for those equipment in order to move that product. So in addition to that, a lot of times when we buy local, we don't buy in plastic containers, or we don't buy it in a lot of packaging. If we're buying from a local market or direct from a farmer, we might just be putting it in bags that we brought ourselves and things like that. And also it gives you that experience of purchasing your food, talking to other people in the community, and to some degree, this offers a really good value. So it's bringing in a lot of aspects, the environmental aspects of sustainability, the economic sustainability, as well as that social sustainability too. So where and how do you find local? So I'm already seeing some questions in the Q&A where people are asking, where do we find locally grown food? Well, check that COOL labeling. So COOL, that stands for country of origin labeling, and this is a requirement by the United States Department of Agriculture that the retailers notify their customers of where that commodity is coming from. So this includes perishable farm commodities, as well as some fish, shellfish, and some of our meats in addition to that. So I just pulled some stuff right out of a local grocer here, where you can see that they have the labels, where was it grown, and sometimes this might just be it was a product of the USA, or it might get specific and tell you where in the USA or what other countries this product could have been coming from. Another thing to look for our specific local foods grown here in Florida is that Fresh from Florida label, and double check that it's actually the product that's labeled as that. So in grocery stores, you might see the Fresh from Florida label around, but just make sure that what you're actually buying is fresh from Florida. So for example, we have a lot of products that we grow locally in Florida, and some of our local grocers will buy from the farmers and sell it. So take a look in the store. Is there a Fresh from Florida label? This was something that the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services started to kind of promote what we have going on here in Florida, because agriculture is such a big industry for the state. And another good way to follow the Fresh from Florida is to visit followfreshfromflorida.com. So they have a lot of information about what's in season right now, some recipes in case there's things in season that you don't normally cook with or you don't normally eat. And there are some information about local farmers in the area, as well as agritourism, which we'll talk a little bit about more soon. Eat what's in season. This can help you buy local. So the reason for eating what's in season has a lot to do with taste, freshness, nutrition, that price, and diversifying your diet so you're not eating the same thing over and over again. So as I mentioned already, the minute that food is harvested, it is going to start to break down. So the sugars, the nutrients in there also start to break down. It's not as fresh when it gets to you. And eating local also allows for the farmers to harvest it when it's closer to its most ripe state. So for example, with a lot of our fruits, it might get harvested. If it's staying local, it'll get harvested right when it's fresh, ripe, and ready to eat. Where if it had to travel further to get to the consumer, they might harvest a little bit early. So in general, it might taste better to buy that local food. It might be better for you. And the price, usually when there's a lot of something out on the market, the price is going to go down a little bit. So when you're eating what's in season, you can eat what there's an ample supply of, so that price might be a factor for you as well. As I already kind of alluded to, it's a lot harder to find certain agricultural products when they're not in season. So if you do find them, they're probably coming from elsewhere. So if it's not in season here in Florida, it might be getting imported or brought in from another state or another country, so that it's still there and available, because there are people that will want to eat it year round, though it's not something we're growing specifically here in Florida at the moment. So get an idea of what's in season right now. So in April, we have bell peppers, celery, oranges, squash, a lot of different stuff in season right now. And this is more just to highlight that there are resources out there that point you in the direction of what would be fresh from Florida and in your grocery stores right now. So this is just a good map listing some of the ones we have going on here now. And on the next slide here, we have a list of some of the things that are going to be in season here soon, or continuing to be in season from those that were also on the list in May. One thing to note, as we get into the hotter months in the summers here in Florida, it's going to be harder to grow certain things because it gets too hot for most plants. So a lot of our peak season is going to be in the spring and in the fall, where in the summer we have fewer things that survive really well in our hot climate. What other resources are available out there? So here in Seminole County, we have an annual guide to our local farms and farmers markets. So this is a guide to our farms and farmers markets that sell directly to the consumer. So there might be other farms out there that do not sell directly to the consumer, but this is a good resource for trying to find in our local area things that you can go to, you can purchase locally grown products. But if you're not here in Seminole County, check with your local extension office. They might have a similar resource, as well as the Florida Department of Agricultural and Consumer Services. That Follow Fresh from Florida website is also a really good resource. If you know your farmer, you'll know your food, ask questions. So you can go to your market and talk to the person that's there. It may not necessarily be the farmer, but they might know how that product was grown or who they purchased it for to sell it at that market. So ask about their farming practices if you are interested in learning more about how your food is grown, especially when you go back to thinking about our conversation from a couple weeks ago where we talked about looking at the food labels and really what it means to be organic, what it means to be a conventional farm, or what it means to be non-GMO and things like that. Ask the person who's growing it. They have a really good understanding of it. And if it isn't that person who's growing it, just talk to them, ask if it's local, because with some of our farmers markets, they're not always going to be selling locally grown produce. Sometimes they bring in produce from other areas. So look at the product, see where it's from, and be ready to ask those questions as you see fit. You can also get out to those farms. So I mentioned the word agritourism earlier in the presentation today, and basically that is combining Florida's two top industries. So number one industry in our state is tourism, as many of us here in Central Florida do know. And our second largest industry is agriculture. So combining the two, we have that ability to have fun and exciting times while learning about agriculture, getting out into the field. So this is anything from U-Picks to community supported agriculture, demonstration farms, and many, many more. So I encourage you to go out to the farms. Here in Seminole County, we have an annual farm tour, which I'll talk a little bit more about here shortly, where we bring people out to the farms so that they have that chance to communicate with the farmers and understand what really goes into producing their food. So that does bring me to the topic of our virtual farm tours for 2021. This is a really cool opportunity that we had because we were unable to have our farm tours in person this year, that we are doing a video scavenger hunt. And in these videos, we visited 6 local farms here from Central Florida, and kind of tying together a lot of what we've learned in our webinar series here. There is a chance to win some really cool prizes with this video scavenger hunt. So by participating, you could potentially win a composting bin, you could potentially win a hydroponics kit, or a basket full of Florida agricultural products. So composting bin, as we talked about earlier, you now should be ready to use that composting bin, and the hydroponics kit gives you a chance to grow your own, try out producing food for yourself, and a good excuse to get that healthy food fresh from your own garden and those Florida agricultural products. So I highly encourage you to participate in this. It's a good opportunity to also potentially win some stuff that can help further what we've learned here in our webinar series. So with that, I will kind of end on the comment of let's think local. So if you want to go to the next slide, Tina. Thank you. So let's think local and ask yourself what local is to you and how you want to get involved in your community and how that can better your healthy Florida lifestyle. All right. And Tina, if you want to talk about this.
Thank you so much to all our presenters. It's just such great little tips that we can all integrate to, have a little compost pile, integrate some plants into your house, stretch and get those fitness little movements in there, and shop local. These are not big changes that we're integrating into our life, but just easy little tips. And so we do have a survey we'll be emailing you later today, and we definitely need your feedback as to how you enjoyed this class, what you learned. And then we'll also send a survey in 3 to 6 months to follow up with you to see if you've been able to implement any changes from this series. Just some upcoming things. We, of course, have the farm tour. Morgan, if you wanted to put the link in the chat, of course, she showed the QR code as well. Definitely check out the farm tour. That's going to be first ever awesome virtual farm tour. I'm really excited to see that. And then also we have a landscape fertilization in Florida. So now is a great time to fertilize and select a slow release fertilizer for your turf and your landscape beds. So definitely join us. The link is in the chat to register this Thursday, April 29th from 3 to 5. We'll have, it's for residents, but also landscape professionals, where you can get some free CEUs and learn all about slow release fertilizing and how to have healthy plants, but also a healthy environment, healthy Wekiva River, and all that great stuff. We also have in May, event coming up, So You Say You're Florida Friendly, which is going to be really targeted towards our homeowners associations, community association managers, but residents are welcome to join as well. And we're going to be talking about kind of what Florida Friendly is, looking at landscapes, talking about issues with landscaping, drainage issues, and have a panel session with an attorney and a community association manager, and just really be able to talk about some of these issues that some people think that letting the weeds grow is Florida friendly, while others, have a very conventional landscape or maybe some invasives that really isn't Florida friendly either. And so demystifying some of those things, join us, and the registration link is also in the chat for May 19th, several hour session, but you'll be able to get those get that information. And then we also have summer edible gardening, and I'll put this link in the chat, where we're going to be learning what can we grow. Katie McCormick's going to be offering that this summer, and definitely join her because we can grow a lot during the summer. A lot of our traditional kind of North American foods that we have. Oh, great. She did put in the chat. Thanks, Katie. A lot of our North American foods, like our lettuces and, a lot of things like that, are not going to grow here during the summer, but there are a lot of great Southern cuisines and Caribbean crops and things like that that we can embrace and grow. It might be a new adventure for you, but they will grow during the summer heat. So she'll talk about that. And now we can address any questions. I did see a few fly up here in the question and answer. Please do put them in the question and answer if you have any questions, so we don't miss them in the chat. Are magnolia leaves good for compost and mulch? Yes, they're great. They are very large leaves, obviously. So if you're using them as a mulch, you might want to try to break them up with a machete, or you could even put them in a trash can and put your weed whacker in there to kind of break them up a little bit. And that's even good if you're going to compost them. Again, you don't have to, but it'll just kind of break them up a little bit to allow for that. And then, are the recordings of the 4-part Zooms available? I believe they've all available on YouTube, and some of them were also Facebook Live. So we have them on our Facebook, and then also on our YouTube page. So if somebody has that link handy, we can chat our YouTube to view any other sessions. If you do view other sessions, feel free to fill out the survey again after. You can do the survey after every time you attend one of these classes, or even if you watch the virtual recording. Can the different links be sent in an email? Yes, we will follow up with an email with the survey, but also with the links and the PDF of the slides. So with that, we'll go ahead and did we any other comments from our panelists or questions that we missed?
No, I think that's it. Thanks everybody for joining us for one session or 3 sessions or all 5 or 4 sessions.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. Yep. And we'll see you at a future webinar or event. Thank you.
Thank you.